So welcome to the Logistics Point interviews. I'm joined by Gary Rosie-Taylow, who is the sales director at Descartes. And we're going to talk about consumer engagement, but also how to provide information that people care about. Where do you think logistics companies and retailers at the same time fail, and how they can improve when they try and engage with people?
From a consumer standpoint, what we see working really well within market and sector, now that comes down to both product and services, is all related to information sharing. Every one of these businesses has information at their fingertips. Probably the biggest weakness within what we see on a day-to-day basis and how we engage with clients and prospects as well is, how do you share that information seamlessly without having to touch it with a client or with a customer? And that for me is the single biggest thing that can impact and create a positive end customer experience on the day of service. Generally what we see people holding on to that and keeping that for themselves, which is one of those things that could present a huge opportunity for both customers' experience, but also the operational side of the business as well.
So why do you think companies hold that information and don't share it?
I don't think organizations think about it. That's probably where I see the biggest opportunity within organizations on kind of the logistics delivery and kind of services side of things, is because we have the information and we know what's going on. But actually we don't translate that into, does the customer know what's going on the day of service or delivery? Simple as that. So it's not about thinking about it, it's about actually utilizing the information and sharing that proactively, as opposed to knowing we've got that available to us should we need it. There's two different tranches and two different perspectives there.
And on the sharing bit, often one of the arguments is that I don't want to spam my customers or clients, and I don't want to send them too much information. They don't really need all these notifications all the time. Where do you stand on this?
If I've paid for a product or a service, I kind of want to know where it's happening, when it's happening, and I want to know any updates should that change on route. From a spam perspective, we talk about it very much in a case of promoting a new product or promoting a new solution or service to me as a consumer. So I don't think there's a challenge or an issue with spam. What I would recommend and what I would say is, from a customer standpoint, it has to be timely and relevant information. Don't need to share every single status change, with a customer, their 100th delivery in, of that particular given day. You don't need to communicate that they've moved from 100 to 99 to 98 to 97. As that driver completes those deliveries on the course of that day, they should be told is, they're 100th in the queue, their approximate time window is this. A, if it changes, tell me. Or B, when I'm next in service, or I've got a more accurate picture of what time it's going to be delivered, share and showcase that. And we start with broad time windows and we narrow it down to give them a more exact time window to empower the customer to make a decision.
I mentioned in the beginning, and people can see on the screen, you come from Descartes, but up to very recently, you were also part of Locals, which also is providing that type of technology. So can you just tell us a bit more about the technology that Descartes is providing now and how this marriage kind of works together?
So Descartes have recently acquired the assets from Locals. Very, very simple. Kind of fits hand in hand with their product solutions in terms of routing, telematics, mobile, etc., etc. Kind of fits really, really nicely in that particular pillar. And effectively, the solution capabilities are it's a customer engagement technology which enables Descartes clients to share key and relevant information on before and on the day of the delivery or service. So it's kind of around that life cycle of communication.
How proactive are people when they receive this type of information, for example, to reschedule a delivery or to say, yes, I'm going to be home at 10 o'clock in the morning?
The phrase customer engagement is quite relevant and poignant, especially when it comes to the day of service or delivery. Okay. Typically we talk about customer engagement is how engaged is that customer with my brand. What we're talking about is how engaged is that customer with that particular service or solution. product delivery and so forth. Typically what we see on the day of service is a very, very engaged client base throughout a user journey. The more proactive communication that is relevant and timely, we see a huge increase in customer engagement in terms of clicking links and engaging with the content that is shared on the day of service. However, as soon as you go down to very, very limited communication, i.e., you're just next in the queue, which we have had clients wanting to do in the past, what we see is an absolute drop off in engagement because they're not used to that communication piece. However, if you're communicated a reminder or a booking confirmation, a reminder, and on my way, what you see is this consistent journey to the customer of going, great, I've got relevant and timely information that's enabling me to plan or work around my day and my schedule, whether it be at home or at work. That's really, really, really critical. As a general rule, what we see is somewhere between 60 and 70% of consumers engaging with content along that course of that journey. That's via SMS and via email. Okay, so the slightly different viewpoints and visibilities. However, when it comes to the actual on my way, if somebody is engaged with content early within that process, we see around about 60% of consumers essentially refreshing that time window when their delivery or service is next. So they're refreshing the map to see where that particular driver is. And we've had cases and instances where we've had clients refreshing the map in excess of 100 times because they are so keen to see where that person is and when they're going to be on site.
Does this also mean clicking the links or looking into more any additional information provided?
The core and the most important and valuable information is where is the driver and when's he going to get here? Right, that's really the most important thing. However, there are other information pieces around it, whether it's links to the help sections and web pages to talk about frequently answered questions, or there's information about what's the journey that my parcel or service took? Was it booked, delivered? What actually occurred within that journey? The majority of the refreshing though is based around that map functionality. We also have a solution in there which allows the driver, the head office of an organization, and the customer to have a joint conversation in there. And in reality, it's really low usage, but it's incredibly high impact. And by that, they more commonly than anything else reduce a failed delivery, probably 98 to 99% of the time. Okay. And that's down to a couple of reasons. Number one, it could be sharing critical information such as knock loudly and hard of hearing. Knock on the door, please wait 2 minutes. It takes me some time to get downstairs. So high impact solution, but relatively low usage. So it's kind of sort of cross borders, and each one of those products or solutions within the product kind of deals with some of those edge cases that you would normally see as either a failed access, a failed delivery, or a contact into the call center in some capacity.
After the delivery, we've started looking at this process as also part of the customer journey, and getting the feedback is also quite challenging. And what should be the objective? What should companies want to see? Why are we asking questions?
There's two perspectives of feedback. There's one is how was the service? Number two is how was the product? Okay. What we see really commonly certainly in the retail space as a really solid example is a delivery occurs on a Monday. You'll get an email from a third-party solution or a third-party provider 2, 3, 4 days later asking you to review the product or review the service. Okay. A couple of things with that is, one, it's not really timely. So actually having relevant and timely feedback is really, really critical from a service recovery standpoint. We'll request feedback straight away, and we see around about 90 to 95% of feedback being delivered within 1 hour of that completion of delivery. Any negative feedback within there, i.e. a 1-star, an unhappy emoji face, so that will allow an organization to recover the service, by communicating with the customer, the end customer, essentially as soon as they receive that negative bit of feedback. So many instances of this is, I was unhappy with the way that the parcel was left on the doorstep. It's not about going back and fixing that, but actually it's acknowledging it and understanding that that caused an issue, and really, confirming to the customer that actually it won't, we'll make sure that doesn't happen again. And that's a really, really positive way for any logistics organization, whether it's a direct retailer or it's a logistics company, to turn around and say, we've handled this. And that puts a really good, positive mindset in from a customer perspective. Delivery or the logistics space is very, very competitive, that generally operates on relatively low margins. So being able to showcase your performance as a logistics provider, delivery company, 3PL, is being able to use that information and say, we've done a really good job. 98, 99% of our feedback is positive. This 1%, we attack it and we communicate directly with that customer straight away. It's a really, really useful tool that organizations are now using to win additional business with other retailers.
Does it matter how a survey looks like? Is it about the photos there, or should it be just words?
Every organization has a different perspective, whether that's utilizing 1 to 10 as a scoring system and just numbers or numeric, or whether it's utilizing emojis or stars. In reality, your goal and objective is one thing: is, was there a problem? Yes or no? And if there was a problem, how can I fix it? Or how can I acknowledge that bit of feedback to enhance my product, enhance my service, but make sure that I'm keeping that customer on side for future? It really doesn't matter, in my perspective, the way you dress it up. It needs to match your branding and your core values. And that's the most important thing.
Gary, thank you very much. People will be able to learn a bit more about what Descartes offers and all of the things that we spoke about in the description below. Is there a place where they can also find a bit more information directly from Descartes?
Now, naturally, the most important or the most obvious and relevant place is going to be online. We have a whole suite of white papers, and additional information on our website. Alternatively, there is contact phone numbers in there, and whether it's myself or the remainder of the team, we're really happy to talk to you about all things Descartes, which covers such a wide breadth of products and solutions to support any organization in their operational efficiencies and customer engagement from my perspective as well.